What happens when a desperate man meets someone who promises to transform his life? Tyler Durden didn't save the men of Fight Club, he manipulated them, and the way he did it reveals powerful psychological techniques and manipulation tactics that are being used against you right now. Today we're going to break down exactly how Tyler transformed lost men without a drop of testosterone in their bodies into soldiers willing to commit vandalism, theft, money laundering, and basically become terrorists throughout the movie, and why understanding this could be the difference between you keeping your freedom or becoming a slave to someone who promises to be your salvation. Obviously, this video contains some spoilers from the movie, but the content is so good that I recommend you watch it to the end. Even if you haven't seen the movie yet, it's cool that after this, you'll watch it with a completely different perspective. Let's start with the narrator, a 30-year-old man with a stable job, addicted to buying IKEA furniture, living in an apartment that looked more like a decoration magazine. He had everything society said he should want, but was completely empty inside. And he wasn't alone. Millions of men were living the same thing, trapped in a consumerist matrix where their identity was defined by what they bought, by the car they drove, by the brand of clothes they wore. Masculinity was being suppressed by social pressures, and they were losing any sense of real purpose. This is a really good critique from the movie because at some point in life, it's normal for us to feel this way, like we're living someone else's life. These men's lives were so dull. They were so desperate that the narrator even wanted a plane crash so his life would have at least a spark of excitement. He was desperate for literally anything that would make him feel alive again. And it was exactly at this moment of vulnerability that Tyler Durden appeared. But Tyler didn't appear to save anyone. He appeared precisely to exploit this vulnerability in a repressed mass. Tyler arrived as everything these men needed to hear. He talked about breaking the rules, about freeing themselves from the system, about recovering lost masculinity. He promised they could be children again, rebellious teenagers fighting for nothing, throwing stones at random cars, feeling an adrenaline that none of them had felt for years because their routine was completely boring and bland. Every day was exactly the same. After all,
working jobs we hate so we can buy shit we don't need.
And it worked. The Fight Club men finally felt alive. They were no longer slaves to consumerism. They had found their savior. They had finally gotten out of the dreaded rat race, right? Well, not exactly. The movie itself has a message that I consider positive, which is for you not to follow a pattern imposed by society, for you to try to understand your impulses and individualities, to actually seek what you want.
What'd you study, Raymond? Stuff? Where the midterms are? I asked you what you studied.
Biology mostly.
Why?
I don't know.
What did you want to be, Raymond K. Hessel? The question, Raymond, was what did you want to be?
Veterinarian.
Animals.
Yeah, animals. So
Good stuff, yeah, I got that. That means you have to get more schooling.
too much school.
Would you rather be dead?
No.
Would you rather die here, on your knees, in the back of a convenience store? I'm keeping your license. Gonna check in on you. I know where you live. If you're not on your way to becoming a veterinarian in 6 weeks, you will be dead.
To this day, Fight Club is one of my favorite movies, but it bothers me how Tyler became a model of masculinity to be followed, to the point where people increasingly want to be like him, and in this, more Tylers appear offering a solution that will take people out of one matrix and end up putting them in another, often even worse. In the movie, Tyler appears in the characters' lives as a savior, someone who would take them out of a social prison and promote a place where they could be themselves, forget their problems.
We're the middle children of history, man. No purpose or place. We have no Great War, no Great Depression. Our Great War is a spiritual war. Our Great Depression is our lives.
When we are children, we all have dreams, desires, curiosities, and diverse talents. As we grow up, society and the world shape us to the point where we prune ourselves to be accepted in social groups. Bit by bit, the child's desire and curiosity, along with dreams, disappear and we distance ourselves from our essence. In philosophy, they call this the shadow, which is not only our childhood dreams and desires, but also negative aspects that we hide to fit into society, like anger, desire for attention, unpopular opinions. I won't extend much on this point because I already made a 16-minute video just on this topic. But the more we suppress our shadow, the stronger it becomes, and the more likely it is to be influenced by a Tyler Durden. Good manipulators know how human beings work. Everyone has their insecurities and weaknesses, desires and impulses that are just waiting for someone to look at them and validate them without judgment. In the scene where Tyler forces candidates to stand for days in front of the house being humiliated and rejected, he shows it as if it were a dedication test, but actually he was doing psychological conditioning. He wanted to teach them that to have access to salvation, they needed to accept anything he imposed.
It's only after we've lost everything that we're free to do anything.
This worked so well because Tyler was using the same techniques that great manipulators have used throughout history. Techniques that work because they exploit basic vulnerabilities of human psychology. Tyler used 4 main psychological weapons, and all of them are being used against us daily by politicians, influencers, salespeople, and malicious people. The first weapon is emotional dependency. Tyler became the only source of adrenaline, purpose, and emotional connection for these men. They only felt alive in the club. They only had friends there. They only had meaning through him. And this created toxic gratitude. They thought, Tyler saved me from my miserable life. I owe him everything. This gratitude became an invisible chain that bound them to the group. It's the same thing that happens in abusive relationships or extremist groups. The person becomes emotionally dependent on whoever supposedly saved them. Second weapon, social proof. When you see a group of men having fun and laughing during fights, your brain automatically thinks, if everyone is doing it and seems happy, it must be right. Tyler didn't need to convince each man individually. He just needed to show that other men were already saved. It's the same technique that influencers use when they show their successful students or when politicians show crowds supporting their ideas. Our primitive brain will always look for the option that is already being validated by other people, especially when we're in doubt. Want proof of this? Imagine you're in a supermarket you've never been to, in a city you've never visited. You've already gotten the products you want, but when it's time to pay, you're faced with 2 cashiers. One is empty with no one. The other has a line of people, all with their purchases in hand waiting to pay. You'd most likely join the line of people even if the other cashier was empty. Your mind unconsciously leads you to think that the other people are doing the right thing because they supposedly know more than you, since you're in a place you don't know. So you might think that cashier that's empty isn't working properly, might be broken anyway. That's how social proof works. Third weapon, principle of consistency. After someone went through arduous tests to enter the group, invested time, energy, and pride, leaving would mean admitting that all of this was in vain, that he was an idiot, and our ego can't stand this possibility. So even when things started to get clearly wrong, the club members continued because they had already invested too much to stop. They were also having access to something scarce. The first rule about not talking about Fight Club showed that this was somehow special. Fourth weapon, the yes ladder. Tyler didn't ask men to commit terrorism on the first day. He started small. Let's just fight a little. Let's do some pranks on the street. Let's vandalize some things. And gradually escalated until reaching, let's blow up buildings. This works because when you've already said yes to something small, it's much easier to say yes to something a little bigger. And then a little bigger still. Each yes creates a psychological precedent for the next one. All these weapons work together because our brain tends to facilitate and accelerate decision making to spend less energy. Our brain is very expensive to maintain. That's why it will always seek to automate as many decisions as possible. When we're learning to drive, we have to pay attention to traffic, the steering wheel, the clutch, turn signal, gear. After months and years of practice, we drive so automatically that the brain kind of shuts off. We only notice when we arrive home and don't even really remember the path. Don't understand persuasion as manipulation. You can be a real estate agent and with the right strategies, manage to sell a family's dream house. This is an excellent use of persuasion. Both sides win. However, our focus here is to talk about how the Fight Club character manipulated so many men by creating a sect throughout the country, and also understand how knowing how to identify this can free you from manipulators and false saviors. But after all, what was Tyler's real objective? Did he really want to help these men? The answer becomes clear when you realize that Tyler didn't want to elevate anyone. On the contrary, he wanted everyone to fall to his level. He wasn't building better men, he was creating soldiers for his own destructive agenda. What started as a fight club for men with almost therapeutic objectives ended up becoming a terrorist militia. What was an escape valve against masculine repression became a revenge plan against those who supposedly practiced this repression. Tyler sold the promise promise of solution and freedom, but delivered destruction and more control. In fact, Fight Club took the members out of that rat wheel and infinite cycle of consumerism. It just ended up putting them in a much more dangerous one. They went from slaves of the system to Tyler's slaves. In real life, we see this in red pill movements that promise to teach men to recover their masculinity, but end up creating more anger and resentment. Politicians who promise to save the country while dividing the population. The pattern is always the same. You are a victim. The system is to blame. I have the solution. Follow me. It's very easy to point out a culprit and present comfort for someone else's pain. Deep down, no one wants to take the blame for anything, and social media is the perfect terrain for this because you can use the same 4 Tyler techniques. Show social proof through followers and comments. Use the yes ladder through progressive content. Create emotional dependency through exclusive communities, and use the principle of consistency through investment in courses and groups. Of course, among all this, there are many who do extremely positive and necessary work. My intention is not to attack anyone. I just want to give my 2 cents of opinion on this topic that I found interesting to talk about, and once again warn about these movements that promote that us against them idea. Always looking for someone to blame, whether blaming women like many red pill movements, blaming men like feminist movements, blaming capitalism. The world will never be perfect like a Disney story. The solution is not to repress your inner Tyler. It's to find healthy escape valves. Want to feel adrenaline or throw punches? Practice Muay Thai, boxing, jiu-jitsu. Want to feel masculine? Face real challenges, build something, take on responsibilities. Want connection? Build genuine relationships based on values, not on shared anger. The truth is that no one is going to save you. There is no good Tyler Durden who will come and solve your problems. Not even in the movie did this character exist. You need to become the complete man who embraces all your sides, the light and the dark ones, without outsourcing your identity to the things you buy or to the people you follow. Be very careful with those who promise to take you out of the matrix just to put you in another one they control.